Hi, I was asked if it would be possible to do a simple chord melody on the standard Honeysuckle Rose by Fats Waller. And so this is my arrangement I'll be presenting to you today and describing what's going on. Honeysuckle Rose was written in 1929 or thereabouts for a musical, as often tunes were written for specific purposes, and it uses the AABA form, which means each part is 8 bars long, and we'll be talking about the chords used. And first I'd just like to play my arrangement, so here we go. Okay, so that was the melody, AABA, and let's look at the chords I've been using. First of all, we have this phrase, which is on a G minor 7 chord, which is the second chord in the key of F. The first melody note is the 11, which moves down to the minor third. So I think I've told you in other videos, it's important to know your inversions. So one of the most common minor 7 inversions is this one, which is 1, 5, flat 7, minor third. You can see that it's very close to the 11. Actually, the melody is so clear, it doesn't need a chord, because it goes through the important notes like minor third and the flat 7 is there. But anyway, if you want to play a chord, that's one of the most obvious choices. Then the second half of the first bar goes to C7 with an A in the melody, so that's actually a 13. And I've chosen a very simple voicing, only 3 notes. The bottom 2 are what is called the tritone, flat 7, major third, and then you add the 13 on top of it. It's a very easy chord to play, that one. You might say, well, why didn't you stay in the 8th position? Well, I just like this chord. It's quite a warm sounding, and I like the movement from 1. These sort of things, the more you do chord melody, the more you'll become aware of these things. It's actually counterpoint, what's going on below the surface. Anyway, and I used in bar 2 a different C13. This one's got 4 notes, the other one had 3. So what are they? Well, the 13 is on top, that's the melody. Then the third 9 and the flat 7. So it's a little bit of a stretch. The advantage is we're in the same position as the G minor. Again, they sound good together. Okay, then I'm back to another G minor, bar 3. This is the 3-note G minor 9, which resolves really easily to the C13 that we've already seen in the 8th position. Then we've got a melody which doesn't need chords. The chord's already been stated in bar 4, so the melody is what we call diatonic, meaning it's in the key of F. There are no other notes there, they're all part of the F scale. And it's leading us there in bar 5, which is F6. 6 chords were used a lot in the swing era, and they're a sweet sounding chord with no 7. So the 6 is, in this case, a D. It looks like a D minor chord. It's called F6. Then F7, that's to give it a bit more tension. F7 is not in the key of F, but B flat major is. So it's the use of a dominant chord to create tension, which is then resolved. Now, you can see it says F7 over A. Well, that's a third in the bass. It's not our job to play the bass line if we have a bass player and a drummer. So for us, we just have to play an F7 chord with the melody on top, which would be this. F, E flat, A. And the bass player plays the A in the bass, which is just giving him a movement in the bass line. So we don't have to worry about that. We just play F6 and then F7. One note changes. And B flat major, major 7, is a D minor triad, but this time the bass is B flat. And then our C13 again. And then we've got bar 8, and I decided to put a flat 9 on the D7 chord because it gives it a bit of chromatic tension. Bar 9 is the second A part, which we'll see a lot of the same melody, but I decided to reharmonize a couple of things. Reharmonization is a thing that sort of happens when you have done quite a bit of chord melody, in arrangements, that you have more options. You're aware of more things you could do. So what I did in this case was, instead of playing C713, I thought, let's make this a D7 flat 9, because that D7 will lead us back to G minor in bar 10. It's just something different. Okay. And so that's another reharmonization. F sharp 7 sharp 9 is also sometimes called an altered chord, altered dominant. It sounds good. And so I'm looking for these things sometimes to break out a bit from the diatonic chains that this tune, for example, has had a lot of diatonic chords from F. Here's another example of reharmonization. I've written G7 flat 13, or actually G9. 9 is the melody. And that reminds me of something that Joe Pass used to do a lot. It's actually chromatic. Then C13 flat 9, again chromatic movement down. So it's done this. Okay, we've seen F7 over A again, but now I added a flat 13, which is also often called augmented as a raised fifth, but it's I prefer to use the terminology flat 13 here. And then it's going up to a D. B flat major 7 chord has 4 notes, but you could actually do away with the low F because it's got an F on top. So if you feel like it. And then we've got another C13 and 6/9 chords are very sweet sounding. They're actually tonic chords. It says F6/9, but it's actually F major. And the interesting thing is that it doesn't have a major third. This voicing doesn't have a third. It has a 9, a G. And yes, you can do that. You could substitute 6/9 chords whenever it says major 7 in your lead sheets. Just see what sort of sounds you can get from that. Okay, now the B part. The composer, Fats Waller, he obviously knew a lot of chords and he knew about the cycle of fifths too. So he's now using an F7 going to a B flat 7, which is a part of the cycle. You could study it, look up what the cycle of fifths is. I don't want to get into it right now, but F7 goes to B flat 7. That's part of the cycle. And the melody he's using, it's what we call targeting. So it's landing on the major third. You could just play F7 all the time, or you could do something like what I did. I added C7 flat 9, F diminished, F7. So you can see it's chromatic, just my fingers are not even getting lifted up from the fretboard. And this melody, he liked it so much he used it again, but up a whole tone. So now it's starting on G. And if you know anything about cycles, you know G7 will go to C7. And when you've gone to C7, you're back actually where we started, because the first key that the A parts were in was in F, which also has a C7, see? So it's quite smart. And now we've got the last A part, which of course is like all A parts. So another thing that Joe Pass would do, just chromatic. And I decided to play that chord again, the F7 flat 13, but playing it here in the 6th position on the middle 4 strings. It's good to know your string groups, meaning whatever you play on the top 4, you should be able to play on the middle 4. Of course, it sounds a little deeper because the strings are thicker. But it's a really important thing about learning guitar, because other instruments like piano don't have that characteristic. If you learn a chord shape on piano, that's it. Of course, when you change key, that's when the trouble starts. We have a bonus. When we change key, we just move up or down. The fingerings are still the same. Anyway, so I think it's a good thing to see, they're the same. And yeah, if you do that on a regular basis, you'll have a lot of fun, because you're not really learning something new. It's the same sound, but you've got this other option. Okay, so yeah, I didn't really do much at the end. Turn around. We've seen that before. Okay, so I'll play it again, and we'll see what happens. But if you have any questions or any suggestions, maybe for other videos I could do, send me an email. I've got my contact in the description. And subscribing is always good, and liking. And yeah, see you next time.